Tonight, this is Hollywood and O'Connelly with the double biceps. It isn't the contract or legal requirement every single time we appear on camera. All right, now we've got that out of the way. The lawyers are happy. They'll be ticking that box. Yes, they did see it. They're trying to catch me out. That's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. They're trying to catch me every single time, and they haven't done it yet. So need to introduce the co-host, the co-founder, the co-breather of air, the co-wearer of clothes in this virtual room. It is none other than the master of disaster, the king of sting, the count of Monte Cristo. It is Thunderlips, the ultimate male. It is none other than the winner of the Dave Stockbridge of the Year award, the illustrious award held by the illustrious man with the illustrious beard. It is your friend and mine. It is Dave Stockbridge.
Thank you very much, Hollywood Matt Connolly. What a wonderful introduction as always, and a very warm welcome to everybody that's tuning in to Arm Wrestling Tonight, your 5-night-a-week half-hour dose of arm wrestling news, bringing to you some of the rising stars of the sport and shining a light upon those people that are doing wonderful things, both within our sport, and for those people in the sport that are trying to make a name for themselves. The man on screen is Greg Yo. Ladies and gentlemen, Eastside Arm Wrestling, all in inverted brackets, and we're going to get to the heart of what that means, because Eastside sounds a little bit gangster to me, and I'm not sure if there's some kind of element within your club and whether we can talk about that or not, but we'll get to that in a little while. But mate, you have been filling the calendar for arm wrestling talent in the Southeast Asian region over the last year or so. You've really made it your mission to shine a light on some of these personalities that are making their way through. You have become one of those personalities and go-to people for anybody who wants to get juiced into the region and know what's going on. What we wanted to know was, who are the big names we have to keep an eye out for emerging out of Southeast Asia in 2025?
Right. Well, thanks, Dave, and thanks, Matt, for that amazing intro. Yeah, this is a topic that I'm very, very passionate about, Southeast Asian arm wrestling, for sure. Just being out of Singapore myself. I have always been one of those guys who, I'm pretty good at arm wrestling myself, but I've never really been, champion. Those guys are, I feel right now in my point of career, I'm probably never going to be one of those like super high level guys, but I still enjoy.
How old are you, Greg?
I'm turning 30 this year, and I started when I was 15. So half my life I've been arm wrestling.
Yeah, you're probably right to start writing yourself off a little bit. You've probably reached your potential. So
exactly, hit my peak.
And when did you realize that? When did you start to get to the point where it's like, oh, I'm maybe not going to be the world champ after all?
Yeah, so I've been competing like seriously for the past, I would say 6 or 7 years. And I've experienced a lot of arm wrestling all over the world. I've competed at world championships. I've done nationals, regionals, been all the way to Australia, been all the way to Europe. And I've seen the level, I've seen the world level, and I know for someone my size where I'd have to be at to be competitive at the top level, which, unless I'm going to be taking the entire, kitchen sink of protocol, I don't think I'm going to be reaching that level. I'm realistic.
It's a lot of trips to Thailand, isn't
it? Exactly, all the way over to Thailand. But that's not to say I'm not going to be competitive in one way or another. There are going to be opportunities everywhere for every level of puller, I believe, in the future, especially with more and more promotions coming out. It's not always just going to be about the best of the best guys. I think we can have awesome matches even at the quote unquote lower levels of arm wrestling. So yeah, this is not something where I'm just counting myself out. I'm just saying that I'm not going to be an important puller or a notable puller. It's still very much a goal, a dream of mine to be a high level puller, but maybe more on an entertainment point of view, not from a purist arm wrestling. I'm going to be the best of the best in the world point of view. But yeah, going back to what you were talking about who are the best guys coming out of the region, I kind of like to live my life vicariously through my friends who I see have the potential, you know.
Yeah.
So, namely, I think probably the biggest name out of Southeast Asia um, is a guy called Valen Low. He's a lightweight guy. He's been in the scene a couple of years longer than me. He was in the Australian arm wrestling scene, I think, as early as 2012, 2013. He was over there competing at FitX, at Arnold Classic Australia many years ago. Did really well. Also competed at like Asian level. Got lots of medals over there. That's Verlin, like right there. And in March, just 1 week after AWE Grand Prix, if I'm not wrong, this was a little bit of leaked things from Robert Baxter. I think he's probably taken down his Facebook post by now, but you're going to be seeing Valen Low on the East versus West card. You didn't hear from me. Didn't hear from me. Heard it from Robert Baxter. So
Robert Baxter. Wow.
That's probably the biggest thing Southeast Asian arm wrestling related that's going to be happening so far this year. Yeah.
Yeah, when Robert Baxter's reaching out and offering you a platform, that is huge. And what do you think has helped him cut through to be one of those athletes that East versus West or King of the Table would consider putting on their card? And what do they feel like he's got the ability to sell more pay-per-views? Because ultimately that's the business they're in, is selling pay-per-views.
Definitely. So I think this is sort of East versus. This is not me speaking for East versus West, first of all. Yeah, but just from what I've gathered from the discussions that I've helped to fill, the intel that I've had talking with the guys over at East versus West, this is sort of them starting to dip their toes elsewhere. You know, not just Europe and America, but starting to dip their toes in Asia. You know, we saw that with Yoshinobu Kanai. We saw that with Ayane from Japan. And now I think they're trying to dip their toes over in the Southeast Asian market. And
makes sense.
They contacted me, asked me who was the best guy, the best guy who would have a good chance at doing well at that East versus West level. I told them,
you hooked them up.
It has to be Valen. Yeah, because they're not too familiar with the Southeast Asian scene. So it was they brought up a couple of names, you know, myself included, but I am not gonna go onto East versus West and get my ass whooped 0-3. Like, you know, from a promoter standpoint, from a brand standpoint, of course I want to go on East versus West. Of course, that would help me immensely. But, you know, where do we go from there? If I, as the representative of Southeast Asia, goes on the East versus West, get whooped 3-0 by David Sumusha or some guy at my weight, then we're never going to get another call ever again. Yeah.
I love that you put the region first. It's just you know, a lesser man would have taken the opportunity and taken that flight to Istanbul or to Georgia or to wherever the circus was going, but got, you know what, that's a free flight. That'll be a nice experience.
Exactly.
Stamp on the passport. Yeah, it would have been good times. But you put the region first, and this is a long held pattern of yours for as long as I've been aware of you. You're naturally, you know, you're an athlete and you're featuring what it is that you're doing as an athlete. You're showing people training, but you're equally, you're showing people how to train, what to do. You're giving advice. You're sharing news. You're being an ambassador for the sport, and now, I mean, I hear there's a lot of people in Southeast Asia, but you're the one guy that they go to, the biggest promotion in the world goes to when they want to know something about the region. So why do you think that is?
I think it's a very simple thing. I speak English. That's pretty much about it. None of the other like Southeast Asian countries over here speak English. I don't know why that's the case, but they really have to up their English game. Just speaking English opens so many doors for you. It makes things so much easier. It makes you so much more relatable. You can get in contact with the right people, communicate, do business, all that stuff. I think it's a really powerful tool. And it's also something that the Eastern Europeans haven't really caught on. Some of them have. Some of them are starting to learn English, like Morozov, like Kalinichenko, Sergei Kalinichenko is starting to do that, and you can see their popularity really rising just from being able to speak a couple of words of English.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and is that something you share with athletes that are emerging that might be coming out of Thailand or wherever, where you're just suggesting, hey, well, English is the lingua franca of the sport, and probably where the money is ultimately, because that's mostly coming out of Western markets, and it'd be worth 10 times more if you had half as many followers from English speaking countries.
Exactly. Yeah, but so I think most of them don't really get it yet. In terms of viewership count within Southeast Asia itself, I'm actually probably one of the smaller creators. Actually, you have arm wrestling accounts, creators, content creators over in Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, which have hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, but none of them speak a lick of English, and they're just stuck in that bubble, that little circle of theirs. They have thousands of views, but those views don't really count for anything outside of their own circle. It's not really getting them anywhere. So yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think is the opportunity? Because we've encountered this with the Indian market as well, where the developing markets are almost impossible to monetize, or certainly to do so profitably from the West. It almost has to happen in that marketplace to be monetarily worthwhile. But it's also very difficult to. I wonder if you've ever given thought to a way to be able to kind of lasso around the community and to be able to almost create like a one championship type of thing where it can be Asia and Australia, and it can be Europe, but it doesn't always have to be America. Have you given thought to how something like that might ever look in your imagination?
Yeah. I haven't had super huge aspirations at that level, but I've had friends and partners who have tried. One of the initial attempts at that was a small promotion called Ultimate Arm Wrestling Championship. It started in 2022, where we invited a couple of Australians as well. I think there was Red Downward, Sam Burnett.
I remember this. Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
That was going.
There was a
pretty
middleweight
okay
belt
for a while.
Up for grabs. Yeah.
And Sam Burnett was still the welterweight holder. I still haven't avenged my loss to Red Downward, unfortunately.
Sounds like an AWE matchup in the making.
Talked to Red today, actually.
Just coincidentally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's out of the blue. But no, I think it would be a fun thing to do. The Ultimate Arm Wrestling Championship was definitely an interesting promotion. You're saying that they're not going anymore, or are they?
After the first sort of year, I think they were trying to go too hard on the monetization, on the PPV, pay-per-view aspect, too early. We weren't an established organization yet. When I say we, I meant my friends. I wasn't actually part of the team, but I was helping out. But I felt that UAC wasn't exactly an established brand. We didn't have established pullers yet to really command the pay-per-view model. I don't think it was a good business plan from the start. And ultimately it failed because it was not sustainable. It was all out of pocket. The two guys behind it was one of them was Valen Lowe, and another one was a guy, his friend called John. Both of them paid thousands of dollars out of pocket to keep it running for a year, and unfortunately did not gain the traction that it should have. Even with one of the events, we had Schoolboy on the card, but even that didn't really pull in any pay-per-view numbers, and so ultimately died out. So probably we'll have to come through with a different angle to make things more sustainable. But at that point in time, this was not a sustainable model for arm wrestling in Southeast Asia.
It's almost outside of big one-off events. Any sport or brand that runs events in any type of serial way will find it very difficult to only run exclusively pay-per-view events, and East versus West and King of the Table and are unique in that way. A lot of fight promotions you might argue might put on 4 or 5 events a year. I think that's a little bit different. Yeah, pay-per-view's a real tough one unless basically Devon's on the card. It makes it. I think it makes it really hard to get huge views. That's why even when he's not on the card, he's there. People want to know what Devon might do or has to say, or it's he is the phenomenon that is drawing in those numbers. So. What's interesting, though, you've also seen the antidote to that in some regard is developing talent, and in your region particularly, and shining a light upon them and providing them with that platform. So what came after this UAC kind of ceased? What came after that?
So yeah, after that, it was pretty much a void in the local scene, at least in Singapore. There's always going to be like small tournaments, promotions here and there popping up here and there, but nothing really stuck. There wasn't really a promotion that really stuck and tried to push for greater recognition or greater arm wrestling growth. And right now, I'm at a point where I have to decide, how I want to move forward with this. I made the decision early this year, to take my training a little bit more seriously, because I want to be more active as an arm wrestler, as a competitor. So I'm starting to step back from that from wearing that organizer hat. So I don't know if there's going to be anyone who steps in to push that forward. But back to what you were asking about, what are the ways we have considered. I think it's interesting because a while back you guys also had I forget his name. What was it? Greg from World Series of Arm Wrestling.
Greg Sharp. Yeah.
Greg Sharp. Yeah, I think he made a really, really good point. It's something that's not brought up very often, which was the sports betting side of things. I think that is part of the future of arm wrestling growth, especially so in Southeast Asia, because there is a huge sports betting market in Southeast Asia. And what I was trying to sort of lend myself into slightly towards the tail end of 2024 was to start a league of team-based arm wrestling, because I feel like team-based arm wrestling is it might be the future. It might be the best way to push forward this kind of sports-based betting kind of thing in arm wrestling.
Okay.
And what I'm talking about was something I call the C Cup, Southeast Asian Cup, which was a country versus country sort of thing. Because I saw that in other sports, like football, I don't know, team sports. Yeah, that's a very big thing that people like to bet on. They like to support their teams. They like to support their countries. And even if you don't know the individual guy, if you identify with a certain team, with a certain country, that is something that you would have yourself invested in. if you saw arm wrestling team Singapore versus team Australia, if you're an Aussie, you would go all in Aussie, 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 oi, 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 bet $500 just for the fun of it.
Yeah, we're real bogans. We would do exactly that. Quite right.
That's one of the things with arm wrestling and betting that is so. I think when you have matches that have controversy or potential shenanigans behind the scenes and that sort of thing, it really, really scares off the betting world or the legitimate betting sides of things, because it's like, hey, hang on, we can't put legitimate bets on this if you guys are going to be predetermining the outcome or doing something really sneaky and dodgy like behind the scenes. That's like fraud. So yeah, I think that it's very, very precarious to put on anything that is unprofessional or has decisions that are made that can affect outcomes that are not relevant when somebody is looking at putting a betting card together, and they're like, okay, let's look at all the factors. This guy's probably the favorite. Let's set it odds. And then they get money coming in on those athletes, and then some outside circumstance from the promoter, from the athletes, from whatever, changes the result, and that can really, really throw those betting systems out.
Yeah, so many things to consider.
Yeah, there's so many variables, and this is part of the part of the difficulty for the sport as it builds a bridge from being obscure or say on the fringes to maybe something that starts to resemble a mainstream sport, and it's interesting to see the evolution of promotions. I mean, what we were just looking at with the UAC, I mean, that was a hugely impressive production. It looked absolutely amazing, just a fantastic setting and professionally shot, and really, I mean, look at that. I mean, that is truly world class. I mean, you'd favorably compare that against what we've seen over recent months from the best promotions in the world. So there's even when it looks as good as that, it is very difficult to has been very difficult to commercialize. So the bridge from where we're at in terms of struggling to find revenue to where the sport needs to go, to me, it seems like there has to be a way forward into it has to find its way on free-to-air TV one way or another. It has to find its way into mainstream channeling, where then it's programmed and scheduled around other strength and combat sports, and it's started to be accepted by the mainstream combat sports community. And then it starts to have a place at that table. Whereas at the moment, the sport hasn't got there. It's a shame. But there's not much difference between this and production values of Slap, for instance.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So the sport does so much good work, and is just doesn't quite have that market that commercial interest can see value in at the moment.
It's close. It's getting there. I can feel the rise around the world and all the
Very
different promotions and everything that's going on. Especially, I'm only 6 years into the sport now, but just from where it was when we started to where it is now, I mean, it's just second to none in terms of growth. The amount of promotions that have popped up around the world, the amount of clubs, the amount of people talking about arm wrestling. You look at all social media across the board. There's now a multitude of content creators that are always putting out daily content and updates about different events and matches, and you're seeing people from all around the world getting a spotlight as opposed to just a certain percentage of the population in that 1%. More and more people coming along to my local club, more and more people talking to me about arm wrestling, and when you say it to them for the first time, they actually probably 70% of the time would have heard of it, as opposed to before when nobody had heard of it and thought it was just a kitchen table sort of thing. So yeah, it's definitely fantastic to see the growth that has happened over the last few years.
Totally agree. I think the moment it hit me when arm wrestling was going to be like when I felt like arm wrestling is really on the cusp of being a globally recognized, sport that everyone sort of knows about, was in 2023 when I was chatting with my now father-in-law, and he told me, hey, did you see this video? This school kid looking guy destroying bodybuilders. If the average Joe knows about arm wrestlers, knows about Schoolboy, knows about Devin, I think it really is getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that
sure.
usually like if you meet somebody for the first time and they say, what do you do or what are you into? And you say arm wrestling. It's normally one of the three that you'll get, either Schoolboy. Oh, I saw this school kid looking guy with a backpack, or this Canadian dude. He's like really tall. I don't know. Used to be in the army or something. That's I get that as well. And sometimes they know Ryan, or they might know some of the other up there guys. But what do you normally get as your response if they have seen any sort of arm wrestling?
Funnily enough, mostly I've been getting Schoolboy instead of Devin. I don't know why, but yeah, in this region at least, I think Schoolboy is a little bit more well known, and
very interesting.
It makes sense if you look at his channel and the number of views that he has. It would make sense that he has more reach.
Yeah, absolutely enormous.
Maybe we'll go to the comments and then we'll try and get two more names, and maybe if Greg was thinking about an 85 kilo event in Australia, I wonder if there might be a couple of names that he might throw into that mix that he might think could compete against the best in the Oceanic region. I just wonder.
All right, well, let's go to the comments here. We've got Brandon Chan in, one of the SO Titans Wrestling Club members, a fantastic guy. He says that the whole of Cambodia will be cheering for Valen Lowe. He's obviously a big fan there. And we've got Lucky Wood has also jumped in the podcast here. She says, morning. I think it is very, very early morning over in the United States at the moment, probably 3 or 4 in the morning. Brandon Chen says that Greg versus Daniel Prokrajek at East versus West needs to happen.
I wonder if Brandon would be our official translator for when he came, because I know there is a big Cambodian community here, and I'm sure they'll probably look after him and make sure that he's taken care of. And it'd be great if we could have Brandon take care of him whilst he was over here, if he happened to come over here.
We'll have to wait and see. But we've also got Neil Pickup, the man who was on the show last night, one of the legends of arm wrestling for over 30 years. This man has been involved heavily in every aspect of arm wrestling. So it's very interesting to hear from Greg and get a small window into the Southeast Asian arm wrestling scene. More power to them. Great to see arm wrestling evolving in more areas of the world. Thank you, Neil. Phil Woody is in from the UK. He says, morning, lads. Always good to see you, Phil. And he says, you know what to do. He's asking everyone to hit that thumbs up button, which is always handy. Very nice of you, Phil. Thank you very much. James the Claymore is in. He says, hey, guys, great to see you as well, James. And we've got another James here, James Lee G, who says it's 3:47 a.m. in Wichita in Kansas. And I said, you couldn't sleep? He says, I was drawn to you.
Like he heard a voice in the distance, thought it was Ryan Bowen. It was Hollywood Mac.
He thought it was. But it he was all excited, and then he went, nah, damn it. It's the Wish version. He's the worst arm wrestler.
No Australian champion arm wrestler, remember?
I was introduced. I was introduced as Australian champion.
Yeah, Matt's ranking goes up the further away he gets from Australia. So if he's competing in Iceland, he is indeed a world champion. So this is
world champion. Champion of the universe, Mr. Universe.
So maybe share with us a couple of names that you think would be competitive at around the 85 kilo mark here in Australia. If indeed, let's say, an Australian-based promotion was maybe considering putting on an event at some point in the not too distant future. Who's in good form? Who would you recommend? Who would you send this way?
Yeah, funny thing you'd say that, Dave, because I just happen to have two names off the top of my head.
Wow.
It would be perfect for such an event.
Amazing. Amazing.
Here's the respectful names.
Oh, who
Yeah.
we got? Who are we thinking?
First one, superstar, probably the biggest superstar on a social media standpoint out of Southeast Asia. Young man, 22 years old, named Guy Thanapat out of Thailand.
Oh,
Really,
Guy
really,
Thanapat.
Guy.
Wow.
He's a guy. I can confirm that he is a guy. The one on the
Okay.
left,
Confirmed.
Guy Thanapat.
Confirmed.
Wow. It
That
just
was
happened to have that
him.
video loaded.
That
That's
was him
incredible.
about 6 months into arm wrestling. That was his first international tournament in Vietnam. You guys are seeing on the screen right now.
Oh,
Right. So
Superstar.
wow.
Yeah.
He's just crushing everyone.
And best thing about him, he speaks English. That's the best thing about him. Speaks English. Huge
Really?
TikTok following. I think 400,000 followers on TikTok,
Insane.
200,000 on Instagram, and really good friend of mine. Super, super strong. This was him like 2023. He looks insanely huge right now. If you go on his Instagram or his TikTok, he's a completely different person from where he was in 2023.
Yeah. He looks huge.
He is huge.
He's
Second guy that you guys just saw a little sneak peek of.
Oh, hang on.
Young man. Here we go. Zhu Zhiyu.
How do you say that?
Zhu. That's his.
Zhu.
In Chinese, we go with the
Zhu.
surname first, last name first. Zhu.
Yeah.
And his given name is Zhiyu. But we call him Ultraman.
Ultraman.
And if
Ultraman.
you're watching that match between me and him, you will see why. Because this kid is a stud. This was him at 19 years old, about 2 years in arm wrestling. This was us having just a friendly super match because we were both going to compete in a different tournament in about a month later. We wanted to see who was going to lay down to the other guy, and we're using this match to decide.
You've got several different nicknames there, Greg. Every video I put up, you've got a different nickname.
Exactly. Don't let
He's trying them all out.
You've got the Art of War here. I saw one earlier that was a different one, and then there was a third one I saw as well.
You're an announcer's dream. All the AKAs, AKA.
Exactly.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
One day I will have as many nicknames as you, Dave.
Now we would have loved to have had you come over for some such event, but you've got something special going on in your life around the time that we're thinking about doing something, and
exactly the same day. Unfortunately, getting married.
It's the big day. Just amazing.
The ring over here.
Hey,
wow.
There you go. Amazing. And you're just actually getting ready to move into your new home. You're actually in your new home right now and just kind of getting things sorted out and unpacking, but you were kind enough to join us on the podcast.
The sneak preview.
There we go. There's the...
Of course, have to have a home gym.
Nice setup.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah, got the bench, pulley over there. Got the weights all set up here.
Wow.
Yeah, all ready for some good training.
That's awesome.
So it really is a bachelor pad at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, I bet you can't wait for that feminine touch just to make things just a little bit more, more homely. I hope she doesn't have any hobbies that might take up any room.
Not yet.
So big names, and so it's really interesting for people that haven't got their head around what's going on in Southeast Asia. We're fortunate that our time zones are kind of there. Australia's kind of we're a bit weird. We're on the end of the world, but we feel like geographically like we're part of Southeast Asia much more so than any other region. There is a bit of an affinity, a historical connection to a lot of these places in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and the like, where there is some degree of shared culture and language, and I guess from our perspective, we're a bit more aware and sensitive to what's going on in the region. But a lot of our friends that might be in Europe or in the US in particular just haven't quite got their head around. In much the same way, I've got no idea what's going on in South America, for instance, or Latin America. That whole scene. I'm sure there's megastars emerging that you and I just have no idea about.
100%.
So yeah, but it's wonderful to have you on as an ambassador for the region, and it's always great to be able to catch up. And it's we do suggest for anybody who does want to just stay a little bit more connected to that Southeast Asian community, know what's going on, but ultimately also follow this man's career, because he's got many years ahead. He's certainly planning it out, and at 30, it sounds like the fire's burning even brighter. He's back training, ladies and gentlemen. So there's a little exclusive for you. There's some post-wedding training on the horizon. So thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast today, Greg.
Thank you so much, Dave, and thank you so much, Matt. Guys, if you're watching right now, hit the like button, subscribe, AWE, follow all their social media channels. Really big things going to be happening for AWE. I'm gutted that I'm not going to be at this hypothetical event in March, but definitely someday in the future, I will be there. I've heard there might be a big event sometime in the middle of the year in Australia, over the top. I don't know if it's confirmed yet or not, but that might be the next time that I'll be in Australia.
Ooh.
Maybe get to catch up over there. Who knows? But yeah, definitely looking forward to this AWE hypothetical event that's going to be happening.
All about the hypothetical events. That's so if you want to know more about hypothetically what might be going on in arm wrestling, you want to know the news before the news, and then you want to see it all unfold, you can do so by following this man on all of his channels. It's Greg Yeo from Eastside Arm Wrestling, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it. All right, thanks guys. Thank you everyone. We will end it